Hello. Bink, 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 bink.
Hey everybody, welcome to Me Going Fast YouTube channel, and this is my homemade dynamometer for small engines. I'm pretty excited because after 2 months of research and discussions and message boards and online forums and talking to other people who have dynos, inertia dynos, and water brake dynos, hydraulic system dynos, I finally got something that was very good, repeatable, easy to make, cost me under $500. Testing was very important. I wanted to be able to get about 3,000 PSI out of this thing. I've got 3 parts in this video. It's going to be going into the break-in period, chain stretch, vibration, loose parts, leaks, going slow at first. Part 2, why did I choose the Predator 212 engine to break in my dyno? What people did I talk to about it? What results were they getting on their dynos? If somebody else was going to be putting together a homemade dyno, what could I actually get for horsepower rating, for torque rating? How could I get something comparable, repeatable, so I can put an engine on the dyno, make a change, run it on the dyno, see what that impact was. Was it good? Was it bad? How good was it? Can I keep putting parts on that engine without putting them onto my cart, without putting them onto a mini bike, having to do that engine swap, take them off? This is a nice working height that I can just keep working on that engine and seeing what the results are in place. Part 3, everybody wants to know the horsepower. How much horsepower does my engine have? I've got a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 10. It's got stickers, speed tape, feathers to make it fly, because this thing freaking flies. But how much horsepower does it make? A lot of people want to know that. So I talked to quite a few people in do-it-yourself dyno groups, people who made dynamometers professionally, or who worked with them to do professional engine building. Boink! Oh, I'm over here now. At the very end, I'm going to be going into some of the future stuff that I'm going to be doing with these mini bikes. Now I have an upcoming video that I've kind of promised people for a while, comparing this Tillotson 212R to the Predator 212. This Tillotson 212R engine came out and it seemed like it was all the rage. Oh, 12 horsepower stock, 12 horsepower stock. It's not 12 horsepower stock according to certain dynos. We're going to be testing this thing out, but I want to do a comparison. Tillotson versus the Predator. I want to make sure that I give some shout outs. Links in the description below. Please do go check them out, like their pages, subscribe. These are really helpful people that have been making sure that I made good estimations for horsepower, as well as made sure that I had proper calculations. And I will get into calculations at the end here. Hey! When I first started using the dyno, I didn't want anything to explode on me. Didn't know how much pressure everything was going to be able to take. Didn't know where the pressure points were going to be coming in. I did have my pressure chamber over here on the side. However, where it actually started to leak was over here up against the box. I had 2 different leaks develop, and I used a couple spare parts that I just realized I edited out of my first video. However, they are still in the description below. I have links to these parts. The only real part that I changed outside of those convenience parts, making sure everything was tight, was going to be the pressure gauge. Now the pressure gauge that I had on the first video was a 2000 PSI pressure gauge, and it seemed like it was a really good gauge. When I was comparing it to other people's results, it was almost spot on to several different dyno results. However, it only gave me up to 2000 PSI. When I put the Tillotson engine on the dyno, it came a bit of a problem because the Tillotson had a lot of torque to it. I did come inside of here when I swapped the gauge out and I burped it. There was an air bubble inside of there. When I started the dyno for the first time, I didn't want the thing to explode on me, and I knew that the chain was going to stretch. So because of the chain stretch that was inevitable, I wanted to run this thing slow, crank it up only to about 2,000 RPMs, let the chain get some wear on it, let the chain stretch out before I made some further adjustments. So the break-in period of this thing, I threw a Predator engine on there and I just ran everything slow, about 2,000 RPMs, checking for chain stretch. As the chain stretched, making sure that everything got tightened up on the plate, making sure that that chain stayed nice and tight. Ran it a little bit faster RPMs, put some pressure in the gauge, made sure that PSI was building up, there weren't any leaks. One thing that I did to reduce a lot of vibration and a lot of chatter in the machine was actually silicone. So around all of the edges I put silicone. The chain stretched. Grease got splattered all over the place as expected from the chain, so I made sure that I was on a good working environment. And the biggest thing really was just vibration. Was anything going to come apart from the vibration? Was anything going to be coming loose? Checking the bolts, run it at 2,000 RPMs, check the bolts, check the chain, run it at 3,000 RPMs, check the bolts, check the chain, crank it up to 4,000 RPMs because the Predator out of the box will do 3,600 RPMs. The governor kicks in supposedly around 5,000 RPMs for a lot of people. Mine, it seemed to be like it was kind of slimming down, not getting past 4,500 RPMs once I pulled the throttle stop screw out. So I did get a boost of horsepower. I tested it directly out of the box, which was important to be able to compare to other people directly out of the box. And then I checked, pulled out that throttle stop screw, and I was running the thing at about 4,500 RPMs and checking the max power that I got out of there. Out of everything, the bolts stayed on for vibrations, and one unexpected thing that vibrated off was going to be the wheel caster. Yeah, one of my wheels actually vibrated right off. Running this machine, pretty simple. One hand controlled throttle, one hand controlled PSI. So as I would get the RPMs slowly revving up, I would apply a little bit of pressure until the engine would bog down. Then I would back the pressure off. Then I would apply more power out of the engine until I was at maximum power. And then I would turn the valve to close down on the pressure system, create pressure in the pressure chamber, and I could really tell distinctly when I hit a part the engine would just bog down. I would just give it a small turn, the engine would just bog down, the pressure would spike, the RPMs would go down, but I would want to really put this pressure system up right before that spike. So as soon as I heard that bogging down, I would have to back off and then get the lower PSI with the higher RPM, and there was a real distinct threshold where everything would just kind of say, no, I can't go any further on here. Why the non-Hemi Predator engine compared to other people's dynos is that's what people were using for a baseline, and it made a very good baseline because it is an engine that has been around for a while, an engine that a lot of people use, and an engine that a lot of people can relate to. So I can pick this engine up for $100 with a coupon, $120, and I can have something to get a very good baseline for my calculations. When I was running calculations with the first gauge, I was getting 6.27 horsepower stock out of the box. Pulled the throttle stop screw back, I got 8.78 horsepower. It was in line with 4 different people's dyno measurements. However, it seemed like something was a little bit off here, so I put the 3,000 PSI gauge on here. I was getting 6.38 horsepower out of the box, and then I jumped up to 7.3 horsepower once I had the throttle stop screw removed. So I've been doing the calculations quite a few times, and I was getting consistent results. I had dyno run after dyno run after dyno run, and these were all very consistent dyno runs. I have a 10-tooth front, and I have a 36-tooth rear, and this is going to give me a reduction for my calculation. So I'm going to have to take that into account. 10 tooth divided by 36, I'm getting 0.278 reduction on RPM. I'm going to have to multiply the 0.278 multiplied by RPM, and then multiplied by 1.52. 1.52 is my flow rate in cubic inches per revolution on the pump itself for what it's rated at. That is going to be divided by a constant of 231 I'm going to multiply that by my PSI, and then I'm going to divide that by a constant of 1714. That's going to give me roughly the horsepower. There is a compensation factor at play, and that could just be that the gauge itself is off by a little bit. So this new gauge I'm liking quite a bit more. It seems to be a lot better quality gauge, and it's really only off by about 10%. So I take a 10% from my calculation, I add 10%, and I'm now in line with what other people are getting. The first gauge, the original gauge, had about a 40% compensation factor. 40% off, but when you add 40% to all of your calculations, it was actually in line with what everybody else seemed to be getting for a similar setup. The new gauge does give me a lower overall horsepower. However, with a 10% compensation rate, I feel a lot more secure that I'm getting a good calculation out of there, and I'm getting something that actually lines up pretty close to another professional engine builder. So I'm getting other engine builders and I'm lining up with their calculations, so I feel pretty good about these results right now on the engine. It also keeps the horsepower in a range where I can work with it. I do feel that this entire setup can get me to 20 horsepower, and really what range I'm looking to play around in is about 16 to 18 horsepower. Get a lot of engines up to that. So I'm feeling pretty good about this dyno right now. All of the ratings for the parts for this, for PSI, are about 3,000 PSI. That's about how I built it up, so I'm feeling pretty good. The tachometer seems to be doing a really good job with what RPMs are and what other people are getting, even though a lot of other people were telling me that they're getting 5,000 RPM when you're taking the throttle stop screw out, and I was not getting that. I was getting about 4,600 RPM just on the stock out of the box engine. When I bypassed the governor, I really only got up to about 5,600 RPM. I did not break all the way up to 6,000 RPM. In the future, what am I going to get out of this dyno? Well, I'm going to be doing some comparison videos. You got to check those out. I have some neat little parts here. This is a mechanical fuel injection carburetor from Tillotson. This is the Tillotson TCT carburetor. I have a couple of those. I'm going to put them on each machine, see what the gains I get. I'm really going to be shooting for some good torque. I've got a popular mini bike right over here, the Coleman BT200X. Bink! And I've got a racing cart over here, and I'm going to be throwing these engines. I've already got a Predator Hemi engine on there right now, Predator Hemi 212, but I'm going to be swapping that out. I'm going to be doing all the videos with the non-Hemi version of the Predator. Oh, there goes my phone. Alright, well, you have a great day, and stay warm. This ant is a complete jerk. You're still fast. Oh, it slimed me! Totally uber-goobered on me. I wonder if I can just jump in and it'll go well. Nope, not so much!